So that's a great question. So I was raised up in Healdsburg in Sonoma County, a big wine region. And my father made a little bit of homemade wine, but I really didn't get into it until I got out of the Air Force in 1976 and started making some wine with friends as a home winemaker. Left that for a while, went back to my day job, which was medical instrumentation. And when I retired in 2008 from that job, my wife said, twice as much husband, half as much money. This is not going to work well, Steve. You need to start that winery, because I'd always talked about starting a winery. And I was living in the Santa Cruz Mountains, which is another great wine region, and I had planned on doing it there, but I started to meet some people in Livermore and meet the winemakers in Livermore and saw the most collaborative effort I've ever seen in a wine region, where everyone works together, everyone helps each other, something breaks, you're getting it loaned from another winery before you realize it. It's a great place to make wine, great growing region. We get a little morning fog, we get nice hot summer days. It's a perfect spot, so I decided to uproot from Santa Cruz County and move to Livermore and start a winery here. So in 2010, we got our license to make wine. So we made some wine between 08 and 10, kind of testing the waters on making larger amounts, because it's not trivial to go from a home winemaker making 5 gallons of wine to a winery making thousands of gallons of wine. So in 2010, we got our license. We had a little tasting room downtown, and I was commuting back and forth from Santa Cruz, which is about an hour and 15, hour and a half, and started looking for a place to live, and I found this property. And it's gorgeous. We sit on the top of Greenville Road, the highest winery in Livermore. Beautiful views. Again, great growing climate. Had some vines planted here. Had the beginnings of a winery that we spent a lot of time remodeling to get it to the point where we could open. We spent about 2.5 months remodeling before we opened, and then been growing ever since. Starting making wine with my friends back in the mid-'70s when I got out of the Air Force got me kind of hooked on it. I was raised in a very Italian family, and cooking was always a big part of that. So, for example, you have someone over, you cook your favorite pasta dish, and when they bite into it, they say, oh my God, that's so good. You feel good right here. Same thing here, when you open a bottle of that wine, you pour it for a customer, and you get an oh my God. It's a good feeling thing. So it's something I always enjoyed doing as a home winemaker, and then again in retirement, I'm not one to sit around with the remote control and watch TV. So I started a winery, not realizing how much work it was really going to be. Well, is key there. So we all met at a shareholders meeting in another winery. We spent a couple of months working with that winery and realized it was never going to be what we wanted it to be. So over a bottle of wine, one of the Steves suggested we start Three Steves Winery, and we kind of laughed it off. And somewhere between the third and the fourth bottle, it became a really good idea. So we started Three Steves Winery, and that went on for quite a while. And about 3 years ago, Steve, that had the idea of the name, moved to Texas to be close to family. About a year and a half ago, Steve Berman moved to Delaware to be close to family, leaving the old guy, me, as the sole proprietor. So Three Steves is now really me, myself, and I. Then once Steve Berman left, and I bought out his share, Steve Melander still owns a small percentage, my son approached me and said he'd like to get involved. He's a general contractor. So I said, okay, Jason. So he's running events now for us and doing the facilities and learning the winemaking process. About the same time, a young assistant winemaker from town, his winery moved up to a place called Napa.
I've heard of it somewhere.
Yeah, they make auto parts.
Yeah.
So he didn't want to move, and he was over here, and we started talking, and he wanted to get involved with wine business again, so I hired him as assistant winemaker. After 2 years, promoted him to winemaker because he's doing such a great job. So if you've ever seen the movie My Cousin Vinny,
yes,
I got the 2 Utes. When Steve Berman left, I was getting close to my 70th birthday, and I really considered, what do I want to do going forward? Being here solo, Steve Berman and I made all the wine together. And I think we made a very good pair, kind of a yin and yang.
Yeah.
We really fed each other nicely. So I really thought hard about what I was going to do before Alex Wolf, who's my winemaker now and our general manager, approached me. And I started working with him. I thought, no, I'm going to go in this long term. And then having my son involved with it, now I've got someone to hand it off to eventually. Don't plan on going anywhere for quite a while.
Good.
But it gives me something to look forward to, or or an out if I ever decide I want to do that. Well, so of course the end product, but to start with, you look for attention to detail. You look to what impressed me on Alex right away was when we're getting ready to, we started making some wine from his father-in-law's grapes for him, and then he was going to help me with mine. It was a Chardonnay. And when we laid out where we're going to go and what tanks those wines were going to go into for fermentation, Alex immediately dove in and started very aggressively cleaning those tanks. Cleanliness is an absolute must in a wine business. You get the wrong bug in there and it'll spoil that wine. You know, Mother Nature gives you this gorgeous fruit and she hands it to you and says, don't screw this up. And there's a million different ways to mess it up. So you start by everything is cleaned and cleaned and cleaned and sterilized. Then you go and you put your product into it. When it comes out, you clean and sterilize it. At the end of the day, just because it's going to sit and then be used the next morning, you start over again, cleaning and sterilizing. So that attention to detail was a big, big deal. And then just talking to him about ideas and, well, what kind of yeast are you thinking about using? And when do you add the nutrients? And kind of quizzing. And there's all these little details, again, that can really throw you a curveball if you're not focused on it. So I look for that, and then his taste as well. Here, taste this. Tell me what you get. You've got to have that piece as well. And mine is not as good as most winemakers, I don't think, but he's got that level. Steve Berman was almost a savant on what he could taste. We were tasting a wine one time, and he says, oh, I get orange creamsicle. That was something I remember when I was 5 years old, but he pulled it out. Alex is the same type of individual that can do that. So you look for that. You look for a good, strong work ethic, because during harvest, there's no such thing as an 8-hour day. You know, we're early morning. We always pick at night here. So it's picked in the middle of the night. We get our fruit about 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. And we're typically, on a big day, we're working on it until late that night. So that's another part of it that people don't see when they open that bottle. We make a lot of different varietals. The biggest challenge as a winemaker is someone comes up with a different varietal and they say, oh, I want to make that, and you pull it in. You can't have too many SKUs in a small business like this, and we're a very small boutique winery. So the ones we're kind of focused on right now is we make a Pinot Grigio, just released about a month ago, local fruit, stainless steel, very nice, very crisp, cleaned. We make a blend called Three Blondes. And the latest version of Three Blondes is Pinot Blanc, a little Pinot Grigio, and a little Chardonnay. Again, nice and clean, but a little bit now heavier than that Pinot Blanc, or Pinot Grigio. Then we make Chardonnays. We'll do a regular Chardonnay and a Reserve. Reserve is our favorite barrels that we blend for the Reserve. We make a Sauvignon Blanc down in Chile. So in 2014, we started going to Chile and making wines down there because why? You can make wine twice a year now, opposite seasons.
Yeah.
And we had an interesting problem in 2014. We were running out of wine because that darn San Francisco Chronicle wine competition gave us Best Red of Show for our Ancient Vine Zinfandel. And when you get Best Red of Show, you start running out of wine.
That's how it works.
So our friend Al that makes wine in California and in Chile invited us down to go make wine with him. We've been doing it ever since. So the Sauvignon Blanc's coming from there. We do a Carmenere from there as well. We do a blend called Tres Gringos from there, which is Carmenere, Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah, and Malbec. Mostly Carmenere, though. We make a Merlot, sometimes as a standalone, sometimes for blending. We do Cab Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon, Zinfandels, my favorite varietal on the planet. If my doctor told me I could only have one more glass of wine in my life, I'd have a huge glass of Zinfandel and immediately go find another doctor. So we do a Zinfandel from Healdsburg, Dry Creek Valley, my hometown, and a Zinfandel, this Ancient Vine Zinfandel I mentioned, from down in Hollister. And then a very obscure one that we make is called Cabernet Pfeffer. And I'll tell you more about Pfeffer later, but it's a light-bodied, peppery finish on the wine. Really interesting wine. I just grafted some of that over this year, in fact, on our vineyard. www.steveswinery.com. Look forward to seeing everybody at 3 Steves. Yeah.